George Bilecki here with Zach Cox. The Patriots' latest loss, 20-17 against the Washington Commanders that just sold at the trade deadline. The Pats fall to 2-7, last place in the AFC. And Zach, this was a game where we saw the Patriots team be competitive for 3 quarters, then undone by themselves in the 4th. Worse than that, this was a bad team that came to New England today. These are the games we saw the Pats win in the past. They can't beat the great teams now, but they beat the bad teams. That doesn't seem the case anymore. That's what makes this loss seem uglier than other we've seen earlier in the season.
Yeah, even in the post-Tom Brady era, even in this current iteration of Patriots, for the last couple of years, it's been, all right, they're not really going to surprise you and win many games, but if you play a bad team or a banged-up team or an undermanned team, they're usually going to win those games and at least get to kind of a 500 even ground type level. As you mentioned, they played a Commanders team that just traded away 2 of its best players in Chase Young and Montez Sweat. According to some of the reports out of Washington this week, those hit the locker room pretty hard. There was some discontent within that organization. This seems like the perfect spot to play a team like that. And again, the Patriots didn't get blown out today, but they didn't do enough in any phase of the game, not to sound just like Bill Belichick, to beat this team. It was the opposite of complementary football. You just saw mistakes from the offense, mistakes from the defense, mistakes from the special teams, especially late in the game. You combine those all together, just wasn't enough for them.
And it's been now 9 weeks consistently seeing this. You mentioned the special teams, Damari Douglas mishandling a punt return, pinning them on their own 5. We see the offsides call when they force a punt, giving the Commanders an extra possession. When we look at what the offense did, 12 possessions today, 9 of which did not go more than 5 plays. Now, there was a Ramondre Stevenson long run, Hunter Henry touchdown catch. Those drives are both 2 plays each. But still, aside from that, there's no sustainability. If the defense gets a stop, the offense isn't trusted to piece together first downs and at least give the defense a breather and maybe get points.
Yeah, and you look at some of the spots that the Patriots offense started in this game. The forced fumble by Jelani Tavai, which was a big play in the game. If the Patriots had won this game, it would have been one of the most important plays. That set up the Hunter Henry touchdown. But outside of that, the Patriots didn't start a single drive outside of their own 25-yard line. And thanks to some of those special teams errors that I just mentioned, they started their last 3 drives at their own 5, at their own 9, and at their own 9. I think the offense deserves most of the criticism on this team for just the way it's failed to perform this season. But the defense didn't set it up well, and special teams didn't set it up well. Washington converted 7 of its first 10 third downs, including a 3rd and 23, I believe it was, scramble by Sam Howell that just had 2 blatant missed tackles on it. Defense was a little bit better on 3rd down in the second half of this game, but again, just not enough in any phase of this game for the Patriots to beat a very beatable team.
If I told you that Mac Jones wouldn't get sacked once in this game, and
without
Trent Brown, and there would be 1 turnover, but that came on the last play. But let's say no turnovers. If that isn't the interception at the end, you'd expect them to win. But that's what happened. The offensive line played well. We saw the Ramondre Stevenson blocking. Mac didn't look good. No consistency, but then the interception at the end to seal it. It's just, again, it seems like this offense is lost. Speaking with the players after the game, Hunter Henry, David Andrews, Mac Jones himself, guys in the locker room, none of them seem able to find any ounce of an answer of what their issue is.
I think that's the biggest of all of the issues. When you ask guys at the podium after games like this, and increasingly week after week, you just see kind of confusion and blank stares. Or you mentioned us talking to Hunter Henry after the game. He was basically like, I don't know, man. I wish I knew. I really wish I knew. He mentioned the turnovers that have been hurting them in pretty much every game this season. Again, as you said, they didn't have one until the end of the game, but it did come in that crucial spot. They're about 10 yards away from potentially trying a game-tying field goal. They also were really bad on 3rd down in this game. That's been a real issue for them going back several weeks. It's performance in these key offensive spots in terms of crunch time, outside of that 1 drive against the Buffalo Bills a few weeks ago, and 3rd down. They just haven't performed.
And we've seen Mac Jones off with his receivers, him and Tyquan Thornton not on the same page to start the game, him missing Ramondre Stevenson wide open on a wheel route down the field but not stepping into it. It goes on and on with the offense. On the defense, even more interesting, as much of a mystery, Shaun Wade, Jonathan Jones are starting outside corners. J.C. Jackson sat the first 2 drives, Jack Jones the first drive. When Bill Belichick was asked after, he did his Bill Belichick thing. Everyone played. When asked why, he answered the what, not the why. What's your read into that situation?
It was actually even longer than that. It was J.C. Jackson didn't play the first 2 drives. Jack Jones didn't play the first 3 drives. Neither of those players spoke with reporters after the game. We didn't even see Jack Jones in the locker room. He got out of there before we even got in. It's puzzling because those are guys that should be vital parts of your secondary, especially with Christian Gonzalez lost for the rest of the season. And to see Shaun Wade starting in there over both of them, I mean, Wade's basically been the break glass in case of emergency guy ever since he got here. He didn't play a single defensive snap in either of the last 2 games. There was a report after the game from Jeff Howe over at The Athletic that those decisions were based on recent performance, I believe was the wording. So doesn't seem to be disciplinary, seems to be more game plan related. And both of those players, Jackson and Jack Jones, both had some pretty costly errors in the loss to Miami last week. But I don't know. It just seems like there are so many things going wrong on both sides of the ball for the Patriots. And you've still got 9 weeks left in the season. If there's this kind of discontent, and you've got Jack Jones liking tweets after the game that kind of are taking shots at the Patriots, veiled shots, I don't know. It seems like a bit of a powder keg here with the Patriots, especially because that defense was the unit that was performing well on the whole for them for the first 5, 6, 7 weeks of the season.
And it comes down to games like we see with this, where every possession matters. Certainly those two, especially to start out the game, would be crucial for the Pats. Zach, it's simple. I mean, where do they go to from here? Because we heard them earlier in the week, the leader saying, look, we stunk for 8 games. We lost games. We're playing bad football. Now we have 9 to go. Let's turn it around. They don't turn it around today. Colts in Germany coming up, then the bye, then there's a home stretch. But where do they go from here?
I've got the same answer as Hunter Henry. I don't know. I don't know how they turn this around. Ever since I keep mentioning the game against the Bills a couple of weeks ago, but that was really the one kind of glimmer of hope for this team. You say, all right, you just beat a good team with a late game comeback. Maybe this can be a springboard for a second half turnaround, maybe even potentially a run at a playoff spot. Then you follow that up with back-to-back losses. There just seems to be no direction on this team right now. The issues are so widespread that it's hard to say, all right, they cut out this thing, they cut out this thing, they get this guy healthy, they're going to be okay. It's issues on offense, it's issues on defense. A lot of it seems to be personnel/talent related. We've mentioned the issues they've had on offense. They're not going to have Kendrick Bourne, their best wide receiver, for the rest of the season. They're going to have to piece the rest of that receiving core together from there. I don't know. It's hard to not have any answers for this team, but I really don't, and it doesn't sound like a lot of people in that locker room do, which raises the question of, what do they do? Is there a decision to be made for Robert Kraft at some point in the next couple of months? I'm of the mind that I doubt that will happen during the season. But I mean, if Robert Kraft's team is sitting here at 3-13 in a month or so, I think everything's on the table, and it's going to be fascinating to see how he and this franchise proceed if this downward spiral continues.
Certainly continues next week. The Patriots have the Colts in Germany. Zach Cox will be there from now until then, obviously throughout the season. Keep it locked in right here. NESN.com, NESN360, NESN's YouTube page. Zach, thanks for taking the time as we try to break down and find the answers that no one in New England seems to have.
PNC Bank, helping to make banking easier.